Welcome back to the Goalie Corner presented by Stop Goaltending. I'm Coach Michael. Today we got Bailey Cawthorn and Kendra Woodland with us. Today's topic is going to be, I lost it on my sheet. Hold for dramatic effect. Injury prevention and being a pro with your body, aka maintenance and recovery, essentially, I think. Um, do any one of you want to start off with a statement or anything with that, or you want me to just start asking questions?
He says he loves this topic, so he could start if you want.
Billy, what is injury prevention in your opinion?
Yeah, I think injury prevention is um, essentially protecting your body and knowing what to do before and after a workout, which includes on ice skating as well. But it's also mentally too. I think if you're showing up to the rink 15 minutes before practice and you can't find your jock and you're panicking to figure out what to wear, and all of a sudden you're on the ice and now you don't have time to stretch, and now you're trying to make a backdoor save and you pull your groin. Well, I'm not going to feel very sorry for you because I know that you didn't take the proper steps to take care of yourself. And unfortunately, hockey is a very fast-paced game, and injuries are inevitable sometimes, but we got to do our best to try to prevent them. So I'd say for me, injury prevention comes down to having a good routine. It starts before practice, before games. It's, dynamic stretching, static stretching, rolling out. Yeah,
So
there's lots of things.
Billy's coming out here swinging, saying it's on
Yeah,
you to prevent your own injuries. Sounds like.
I
Okay.
but I made my point that it is inevitable. Sometimes you just get hurt. If you get ran
Sometimes,
over,
yeah, sometimes it
I'm
just
not.
happens, but
Yeah,
there's a difference between preventing and reacting to an injury, right? So I think we can all say we've probably been, when we were growing up, we were more reactive. Oh, I tweaked my groin. Oh, I tweaked my hamstring. Now I got to do this mobility work or the foam rolling and recovery stuff because I'm injured rather than where I think we all are now, and I'm gonna do that every day, every 2 days, a couple times a week to prevent those minor tweaks, right? So for me, injury prevention is like the learning curve in which changing from reaction to now, okay, that wasn't cool. I can't afford to be out a week because of a groin or a hip or whatever soreness. I have to now implement this to my daily routine. And um, I know that's going to carry forward. So when I'm in juniors, college, pro, whatever, I'm able to be my best consistently without dealing with the minor setbacks, right? And so that's different than being a pro, in my opinion, right? Being a pro is knowing what you have to do to increase the prevention and then increase um, areas that you lack, right? But staying in prevention, what is it that you can do to prevent common goalie, let's say, side effects?
I was just kind of while you were saying that, I think body awareness is like step one in being a pro with injury prevention. If you're just doing a cool down to stretch, that's half the battle, but what are you stretching to prevent it? What has hurt? What is sore? What is like a prolonged injury that you've had in the past that maybe kind of just sporadically hurts every once in a while? Maybe those are areas that you should be working on when it is ultimately up to you to take care of yourself. I think, oh my gosh, cool downs. I think number one, warm up, cool down. Like if you can't stretch cold muscles, like Billy was saying, like if you're late getting on the ice, like stuff happens and stuff like that. If you're cold, you're hooped.
Yeah.
You stretch to make a backdoor save and you're cold, probably not going to end very well. But if you're warm off the ice, you get warm on the ice. I know they're two separate things, but if you basically check those two boxes, then it's kind of left up to the inevitable of like, well, if you get ran over, yeah, but you know what, you're helping yourself in the long run, but your cool down is like so your muscles stay loose. I know if you're on the road and you got out of there, you got to get out of the rink, they want to get on the bus and get back home. You don't get a full, really good cool down in. Um, but like you have to make sure that you are, because you're gonna go sit on a bus for 3 hours on your drive home, and your muscles are just gonna tighten. So the next time you go to even try and do a warm up or an ice time or a workout, it's gonna be that much harder for you to keep up. Your muscles are gonna be tired because they didn't get the proper care and rest and maintenance that they needed.
Right. So tying everything up, or not up, but together, warm up, cool down, significantly important, significantly different, right?
Yes.
I'm sure most athletes have heard of dynamic and static stretching, right? Easiest way to talk about it is dynamic is active motion stretching, right? Leg swings, high knees, low pull, and then release, right? Very important at the beginning of ice time, workout, whatever, right? When you're cooling down is the time for static, right? So you're sit and stretch, so you're lengthening the muscle, right? Which is flushing out the um, lactic acid that builds up with activity, right? Because you're trying to flush it out, get new water into your muscles, get new oxygenated blood into your muscles as well, right? Dynamic works on fast twitch muscle wakening, as well as flushing and cycling the water in a different way and the blood in a different way.
Something that I've liked, I think, more as I've gotten older is working in mobility to my warm-ups. Your 90 mobility is huge. It's like one of my favorites, but that's basically like your hip mobility, your hip flexion. Because obviously there's a lot of goalies that have hip issues as number one, and then knees are number two. So working on your mobility is probably priority, I think, in my warm-ups, as well as basically warming up the groin. I basically just like squeeze a med ball
Yeah.
and stuff like that, just to make sure that, you know what, like groin is a hard muscle to warm up, and it's one of the easiest to pull. So mobility and basically your correctives, if for
Yeah.
lack of a better term.
Activation.
Yep.
What is it? What does it mean to you being a pro with your body, right? So getting a little bit off injury prevention, because I think we touched on that good enough, right? Proper warm up, proper cool down. Now, being a pro with your body, Kendra already kind of touched on mobility aspect, but what is it to be a pro listening to your body, or being a pro maintaining your body health?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing too for injury prevention is sleep and proper nutrition, hydration, making sure your muscles are getting the right nutrients and the right rest to so that the next day you're able to be 100%. And that's all part of being a pro. And it kind of goes back to, I think I'd mentioned it before on different podcasts, like putting your phone away before bed and not being distracted. That's being a pro, is, knowing when to go to bed, knowing when to wake up, having a routine. Super important. And I think same thing too. Like, I was a guy, I like to get to the rink, before games, like 2.5 hours early, before practice, like an hour and a half early. A lot of people will say, well, 2 hours or 1 hour before practice. But that extra half hour buffer as a goalie gave me that time to, okay, I'm going to take my stick. Okay, I'm going to be like, okay, what's my routine? Because sometimes, you run into guys, you talk, whatever, like, yeah, that's going to happen. You're going to talk to your teammates. So it was nice to have that buffer where I was never in a rush. Okay, it's 2 hours before. Now I'm going to go do my dynamic warm up. I'm going to do my mobility exercises. Another one that I really like, Kendra touched on 90-90. Half kneeling, just lift your leg, lift your hip as high as you can, slowly. There's tons of different things. You can do all your research on that at your own time. But I think, timing is also part of being a pro. How much time do you need to warm up? How much time do you need to cool down? The coach comes in the room after a game or after practice, or if there's a practice after your practice, and that room needs to be cleared out. Okay, you got 30 minutes. Don't just marinate, get undressed, take the 10, 15 minutes, get undressed. Okay, you have 15 minutes. Go cool down. Don't just sit there in your gear and do nothing. Um,
Is it fair
so
to say that going into a practice or on ice session, whether or not that's a game, the bulk of the warm up should be done off ice? So
yeah,
when you're getting
100%.
on ice, it's kind of like re-engaging because you've been sitting for 5, 10 minutes getting dressed. So just making sure that you re-engage, a couple little crease movements, a couple little activation stretching, and then you're good to go.
I'd say
Yeah,
this is,
yeah.
yeah, I would say, yeah, like you only have so much time on the ice. And like even in a game, as soon as the puck's dropped in the first period, you want to be ready to go right away, you
Right.
know,
And in minor
for the
hockey,
first.
you get 5 minutes as a warm up on ice. That's not enough time, right? That's
No.
time to get puck feels, right? Puck touches.
It's more like I think we talked about this on a different podcast, Mike. It's like is your off ice warm up. Your on ice warm up is strictly muscle memory. It's
Yeah.
to spark your muscle memory to basically just, okay, I remember how to stop a puck. I can do that in 5 minutes. So it's
Right.
like your body's already warm when you get on the ice. And then it's just, like you said, for feeling the puck, but reminding your muscles that are already warm that now it's hockey mode, that you know how to stop a puck.
Right. And I think I don't want to get too gung ho on warm ups, cool downs. That might be a different topic where we can dive deep into what is a good routine, what's a proper routine before and after games practices, right? My last note on it is your cool down at the rink. You can do two different cool downs, right? You can do a 5 minute real quick cool down at the rink if you have to get out, get on the bus or get home because your parents are waiting for you in the lobby. Don't take 45 minutes, right? Because that's just not nice. So do a quick little stretch, quick little routine. And then when you get back to your final destination, whether that's home, dorm rooms, billets, whatever, maybe on the bus because it's a long road trip, take more time and to stretch out and do whatever you need to do, right? It's fine. You're not going to re-hurt your or you're not going to injure yourself by taking more time and attention, even though it's an hour or two after the activity, right?
Yeah.
Um, is it just to deal like being a pro with your body? Is it just warm-ups, cool downs of activity? Or can we do stuff in a gym, in on a field, your day-to-day life to help with listening to your body
I
or
think
to prevent injury?
Yeah, I think Billy touched on it, like sleep and nutrition, is something that is basically only up to you at the end of the day, regardless of how old you are or where you're at in your hockey career. Like, you know when you need to go to bed, essentially. And it's like, are you staying up watching TikToks for an extra hour on your phone, or are you getting, 8 to 10 hours of sleep a night? I think on the nutrition side, so I'm celiac, so I can't eat gluten. So that was a huge change in my diet. I think and it was kind of hard to navigate being 19, starting at 19. But since I've figured that out and made an effort to basically focus on my nutrition, I've seen leaps and bounds in like my on ice or in my off ice workouts. I feel better. I have more energy, stuff like that. I think I'm not saying everyone eat gluten free. It's just more pay attention to your body and what your body needs for fuel and what it doesn't like for fuel, basically. That comes with your body awareness. I think it goes with sleep and nutrition just as good. It's that you know when you need to go to sleep, you know what you need to eat. You need to listen to your body to make sure that you're energized properly.
If you're a kid, you might not know that you're celiac or hey, you know what? Maybe um, dairy doesn't help me, right? It makes me
True.
not feel good. And you just might not know that at the time. But if you're feeling sluggish or if you're feeling something like that, then it's a rather easy little mini experiment to try to eat something a little different before going for a workout, right? And then
Yeah.
learning when to eat, right?
Yeah, I think and at a younger age, like, your parents are putting the food in the fridge kind of thing, right? Like you can communicate with your parents with, hey, that doesn't make me feel very good when I eat that or drink that. Can we figure something else out? Like, use your parents as those resources at those younger ages, because like you said, like you're not gonna know fully, but I think that first step to being a pro in that problem in that part, it's like
Communication.
pay attention to what makes you feel good and what makes you feel bad, basically, I think is kind of your first step in that, in my opinion.
And don't use it as an excuse, being like, "Oh, chips makes me feel good." Because one,
No.
it might because it's giving you a sugar rush, and
Yeah.
then it's a crash, right?
Yeah.
So we're looking for good, healthy foods to actually support the energy that you're putting into
Yeah,
the activity.
absolutely.
You guys both talked about mobility, the 90-90 and extra stuff, especially with the hips. Do you only focus on that in the warm-up portion of your activity, of your training? Or do you take time to focus on adductor, abductor, the accessory muscles to the big ones, right? Your quads, hamstrings. There's a lot more muscles in your leg that need attention as goalies.
I feel like try to focus on like each piece for me personally. Like,
Is
yeah,
it like you're
especially
going to the gym and you're like, my only objective today is work on these accessories, or does it just morph into part of your routines, your actual exercise routines?
I usually do it like 15, 20 minutes before I work out, no matter what I'm doing. Upper body, cardio, full body, plyometrics, whatever I'm doing, that mobility routine is the first thing I do before any workout. I don't know. That's what I like.
Yeah, I do it before and after. So I do mobility and warm up and mobility and correctives in cool down. Because once you're warmed up and you go through all your workout, it's kind of nice to do your mobility again when you're fully warm. Like
Right.
your muscles are fully warm after a workout. So being able to do mobility, it's just maybe you have a little bit more leeway just based on your muscles. But I like the correctives, and by correctives are like your like toe on wall stretch, your groin med ball squeezes, stuff like that to make sure that you're, like we were saying, preventing injury while you're warm still. Like I said, you can still pull a groin when you're warm. It's a hard muscle to warm up, but doing it twice of like, med ball squeezes probably not going to hurt you, right? Like I do it twice because it's not going to hurt you, but that's
Right.
that's kind of what I do. Yeah,
Maybe we should have talked about this before, but are we in agreement that stretching and mobility are different? Right.
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
stretching, if this is new to anybody that's listening, stretching for me, is muscle based, right? You're lengthening the muscle. And then mobility is joint health, right? So easiest is ball and socket joints, right? Shoulders, hips, making sure you're getting the maximum range of motion you have access to, and then learning how to strengthen the range of motion, right? So it's great that you can do the splits, but can you pull your legs back in quickly as well, right? Um, Big component to the mobility is lower back and upper back, right? Your spine mobility. And then there's countless videos online of 5-minute routines, 10-minute routines, 20-minute routines that you can go and start experimenting. Hey, I like this. Hey, I don't like that. And building your own sort of mobility, not program, but routine, right? Okay, I got 5 minutes. I'm gonna add this drill, this drill, this drill because it makes me feel good quick. Okay, I got 20 minutes for cool down. I'm gonna focus on hips, knees, ankles, lower back, whatever, right? Use the resources that you have. You have an absurd amount of resources, and you don't have to follow each one to a T. You can pick and choose what you like, right? And implement it to what works best for you, right? I did this one routine. I just followed along with the video for 4 years. I probably gave the guy 75% of his views, and there was some weird movements that he was doing. I'm not doing that. Like he was doing like a crab walk. I'm like, no, can't do that. Right? Like I don't have that mobility in my spine. But I liked what he was doing around that, right? He did a
Mhm.
lot of wrist stuff, and I didn't know wrist mobility was so big as a goalie, but made me feel good, made me stop pucks better. Maybe it was placebo, but there's
That's still
resources
like
out there.
I kind of want to touch on that a bit.
What do you want to
Like,
cut? Placebo?
yeah, like if there's something you're doing and you feel better, personally, I don't really care if someone tells you it's not helping you. I think it is mentally. Like, and
That's a
that's the
catch 22 because then that starts turning into like superstition. Like
okay.
I
Well, I'm
have
just
to
talking
do
about
it.
exercise. I'm not
Gotcha.
talking about stuff like that.
I could raise something. Ice baths. So I've been told by multiple athletic therapists that ice baths don't do anything for you. but I've also heard that they're really good for you. So I don't know, like if it doesn't really do anything for you, but someone's doing it, then they feel better.
Yeah.
Why not? Right? It's not hurting you.
I
So,
think ice baths got a little too trendy
mhm.
in the mainstream, and which is a pro and a con because pro is a lot more science and research went into it. Con is they started poking holes in a lot of the old theories of why, right?
I think like the new way about it is like contrast baths, actually. You do like a certain amount in the cold tub, and then you jump in the hot tub and go back and forth. I think that does more for you, but I think just going on like the placebo part, it's if you're doing something that you think is making you play better and you are showing results and it's
Yeah.
not doing anything to hinder, why not? Right?
Yeah. Like I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole. I am a big believer in ice baths and cold plunges, and it's solely based on my own experience, right? For me, it's way more to do with the mental than it is to do with the body. The body, I was reading or listening to one of the reports and saying how it's actually bad for the muscles because it's pulling all the blood out,
Yeah.
right? And I'm like, oh, that makes sense. So maybe not do it after a heavy lifting day, maybe focus on more heat therapy, right? Like a sauna and whatever, or do the contrast, but a few hours after the exercise. So the blood that's needed gets to the muscles that need to recover, right?
Yeah,
So that makes sense. But for me, I'm still going to do them, right? And it's just learning more about it, right?
absolutely.
Like people didn't think working out, people thought in the 80s working out was bad for you if you're going to be an athlete, right? Like that was the common
People
belief.
thought
And
drinking
that's
water would
this,
make you
yeah, and that was the
bloated.
science behind it at that time, right? So everything's always subject to change right here, right now, based on our three personal experiences, which I think are very good. We're telling you that our big thing is mobility, right? And then strengthening those joints as well, because that's going to help. It was crazy when I came back into the coaching world from being an athlete, going back into minor hockey after like 10 years. Everybody's a toothpick compared to what we used to be, right? And I remember being U18 going to major tryouts. If you were under 190, you were done with the team unless you were something special because you didn't have enough muscle to protect yourselves from being hit, right? And that's what it was. So everybody was big, thick, clunky, and it was pretty slow hockey, right? And now it's very fast paced, high skill, low amount of hitting, right? It's changes. It's fine, whatever, but you still got to have some sort of muscle to protect yourself. And it doesn't have to be big, clunky biceps to protect your shoulder, right? You need to strengthen the mobility aspect of the joints, which might make you a little bit thicker, but don't worry, you'll still be 150.
Well, the crazy thing about today's game is like there's guys. I mean, I'm a hockey nerd, so the OHL draft was a couple days ago, and the guy who went first overall in the OHL draft's like 6'5", 230 or something, 16 years old. So like the crazy thing is now, and he can move. So like that's the big thing I think, and it's the same for goalies. Obviously, we're all different. We're all different sizes, and this is kind of getting a little bit off the injury prevention thing, but at the same time, staying on it as well. We're all if you're super tall and you're like don't you might have to work more on your mobility and work more on your stretching and stuff than maybe a guy that's 5'11" because you're kind of susceptible to that, and it's maybe a little tough to have that range of motion, but the top athletes and the top guys that are very successful are the ones that, to be honest, have it all. They have the size and the strength, and then they put in that extra effort to be extra mobile and to be extra quick and to be crisp when they're skating and in their movements and when they're tracking pucks. And when you can put it all together, that's where I think the game in the last 10 years has changed a lot. You don't just have to be big and strong now. You have to be big and strong and be able to move as well. And it's the same thing for goaltending. Like,
Yeah,
it used to be just be big and stop and get in front of the puck. Now it's be big and be able to move. Look at Vasilevsky, right? Like,
Yeah, it's a change in perception where you don't need to be able to push 300 pounds. You have to be learn how to use the muscle that you have, and it's lean and explosive, right? I'm still a strong believer with the best injury prevention is being physically strong, right? Because my personal experience with blowing my knee out, I still played a full season on no MCL, ACL, and I'm pretty proud of it, to be honest with you. Stupid, but it's because I got misdiagnosed, and I got misdiagnosed because of how strong my legs were around the injured spot, right? They fooled the people in the sense of they were compensating so much and so well. And I definitely would not have been able to do that if I was smaller, right? But I was an absolute unit of a tree trunk. So maybe don't recommend being that. But yeah, Kendra, do you share the belief of the that I had there?
That like being physically strong is like injury prevention.
Yeah, like it's a part of or an aspect of preventing injuries. It
I
can
think,
also cause injuries if you don't stretch and do the mobility work with denser muscles, I think, as well.
yeah, I think just speaking again from my own experience, like I had a personal trainer, have a personal trainer who I've had since I was 9. And there were certain things that obviously he wouldn't run me through at 9 or 10 or 11 years old because you're still trying to build those muscles and they're not sure what lifts are.
Right.
But again, like using that as your framework to move up as you get older to the point where you get to the U15, U18 level, you're physically strong. You've got like a good foundation. Um, you're built, and like you said, it's not like being jacked. It's just you're stable essentially.
Right.
I think when I think of being physically strong, um, like how many people like just roll an ankle? It's so easy to just roll your ankle, like walking on the street. Something for me is like I've never, knock on wood, rolled my ankle to the point of like injury. And I owe it to my stability work that I've put in for a lot of years. And it's basically like Bosu flipped over, dome side down, you're on top, you're doing squat holds, you're doing squats, quick drop squats, and then you change it to single leg. So you're now building your ankle mobility, but you're also building the stability of it. So
Right.
it's being built physically strong that way through your stability and your mobility.
Right. I think that was a great thing that we might have accidentally missed, right? Is the stability, especially with the ankles and the knees. And that doesn't need weights, right? If you're U13, maybe going into U15, the weight room is not for you yet,
No.
right? You can still get the exact same results in body weight activity.
Yeah, and all your stability can be done.
Body
Your
weight.
warm-up stability is done body weight so that by the time that you can do your stability with body weight and then jump into a squat rack, it's going to be better for it once you get to the point of getting in a squat rack because you've done
Right.
the work body weight to be stable.
Right. I compliment my parents on when I first started getting into the weight room. It was me and my buddy who actually owns a gym now. Um, we drove up to Whistler. We were living in Squamish. So we drove up to Whistler to work with this specific guy who started us off with bench pressing that white pipe, PVC pipe, right? And squatting the exact same thing. And he had like fake weights. So it looked like we were maybe lifting weights, but we weren't. It was just straight. You're essentially holding a hockey stick, right? And it was like a 2 to 3 week program, and it was just me and him, and it was solely disciplining on form, right? So there is a difference between just doing 100 squats of body weight for speed and doing 100 body squats for form. They both suck. Let me get that out of the way. But doing it for form was way harder than just doing it for speed, right? Watching yourself in the mirror, watching the and just holding yourself accountable to making sure every component is correct. So you're not preventing, or sorry, so you're not injuring yourself because you're trying to go fast, right?
Yeah.
So if you're even U11, I know some kids are at U11 or in the gym working out. Yes, they're not using weights, but you need an actual professional to teach proper form because
Yeah.
that is the biggest component for injury prevention and being a pro away from the rink.
I think there's form, yes, absolutely. But also knowing like from a professional standpoint of like teaching strength and conditioning is that everybody moves differently. There
Yeah.
is a form to a point, but I've ran into some trainers just along the way that you might meet at camps and whatnot that like maybe don't think of the aspect that like some people might be pigeon-toed. Their sprint mechanics might be a little bit different than the person beside me that isn't pigeon-toed, right?
Right.
So I think it's like, yes, absolutely, there's form. Like when you're in a squat rack, like, you know that. But I think also paying attention to like maybe some form will hurt somebody that moves a different way.
So
So making
that
sure
go
that they're
for me, that goes hand in hand with the coach rather than the athlete, right? Because you can say the exact same thing of training goalies, right? We look at one of our other coaches, Luca, who's 6'4", and then we look at Jackson, who's 5'10", 5'11", maybe on a fantastic day. We're not teaching them the same thing. We're getting
yeah.
them to do the same sort of movement, but they're going to excel at doing that movement this way, where this kid's going to do it that way, right? So
Yes,
that goes hand in hand with the coach themselves, I think.
absolutely. It's not to say for the athlete to be like, that hurts, can't do that. Like it's not just a way to get out of it. It's actually like, again, I'm huge on it, the body awareness of, okay, does this hurt because of my form? Do I need to change my form because of how I move? Why does it hurt? And yes, being with the coach of saying like, can we figure this out? But no, I totally agree.
Do I
Yeah.
need do I need to change my form or do I need to like lower the weight? And there's
Yes.
no embarrassment in that either. I'd say the biggest thing too is like sometimes I feel like I have good hips, and there's sometimes like if I'm doing like lateral movement, my hips I can go like pretty my growing can pretty much get to the ground. But if I'm doing like a back squat, like I played with a player, crazy hip mobility. He could literally like get his butt to his heels. When I'm doing squats, like, even without anything on my back, I kind of struggle to do that. I just always have. Like, and I've worked on it more and more. And to be honest, I still work on it, and it's getting closer. But I used to be a big guy. Like I need to lift, but instead I kind of had changed that to a point where it's like if I'm gonna do a front squat or a back squat or a barbell lunge, I'm gonna put on less weight and actually work on that. It's still working on mobility. Your squat is working on your hip mobility, your knee mobility, and that's how goalies kind of have to think a little bit differently. I think as far as weight training is, and again, it's also injury prevention. If I put 3 plates on the bar and throw it on my back, is that really going to help me stop the puck? I don't know.
Yeah. I think the best piece of advice when it came to the weight room, because I was an absolute tree trunk, was great. How does that help you? Right? You can push a bar 3, 4, 500 pounds up and down. Great. Well, goalies, you move side to side, and you're not pushing with two legs, you're pushing with one leg. And I was like, and it was like a oh damn moment because I spent so many years strengthening that movement, right? So if you're starting working out, and this isn't the topic of the episode, but if you're starting to work out, I would highly recommend obviously body weight, but lunges off balance running, like so don't run on pavement, run in a field, run in like a trail, because you're learning that stabilization's all part of that. And then if you're doing lunges, there's so many variations of lunges to hit different muscle groups that are way more relative to goaltending than just squatting, right? Squatting only helps you when you're sitting down to the toilet and standing back up. And I
That's
can
like
move, and
Well,
I was able to push 500 pounds that way.
I guess my thing is that is wild. I guess my thing is like, if I'm gonna do it, to be honest, I don't really believe in back squats at all anymore. So I've just realized that you're going to hurt yourself, but we're talking about it. So, if you're doing a front squat or a back squat or whatever you're doing, as a goalie, I'd highly suggest like start with the bar and see how low you can go. And then, because that's, again, I'm just talking about injury prevention here. I'm talking about hips and knees and, if so, and I agree 100%. Lunges, single leg stuff, that's all right up my alley. To side lunges, T-bar side lunges, I could go on and on. But anyways, I think that if you are like doing generic lifts, even like shoulder mobility, say you're doing bench press, if you have like, how far down can you bring your shoulders? If you have a ton of weight on and you're just trying to push a ton of weight, is that really helping you? Or you can still like pull your shoulders back and work on how far you can pull your shoulders back. And that, like, I think that's one thing too, and that's another thing. This is almost another topic as far as mobility, but like shoulder mobility to make saves in front of us and to catch pucks and deflect pucks. They obviously talk about knees, but what about our shoulders? What about our elbows? What about So that's another topic. But I just, as far as generic exercises go, I definitely suggest like less weight, and you're still working on that mobility piece.
Yeah. And then I kind of talked a little bit about accessory muscles, abductors, adductors, groins, again, a little bit of stability stuff. It's easy to include those into a normal workout. And you don't even need a band, but the best way to do it is just using a rubber band. And that's good enough, right? You don't need to be pushing weight and tearing those muscles. You just need to um, activate, put a little bit of tension on it, and then learn to release controlled, right? A lot of it is control based. And I think that's where Billy was trying to go with the deep squats and stuff like that. Can you control yourself in that position, right? It's an extreme position, getting your butt all the way down to your heels, right? That's an extreme, but can you control it, right? Do you have power in there? Do you have, um, is that a useful range of motion for you, essentially, right? Kendra, do you have any final thoughts or any wrap up topics that we might have missed by chance?
Not necessarily topics, but just one thing that like I've learned that I always keep in mind is like if you have a trainer that works for you, stick to that, but also keep in mind that your trainer doesn't know everything. Not one person will know everything. So like I think I'll always say this. I think I've said this on past podcasts too, but like be a sponge. Like if you're somewhere with a different trainer that might say something that you've never thought of before, something that really works for you, use it. Like, and if it doesn't, don't use it. But I think paying attention to, yes, if you have someone that works really well for you and you have good relationship with that person, perfect. But if you kind of cross paths with other trainers that can help you as well, they're essentially helping you with injury prevention and teaching you how to be a pro with your body. Take it in every little bit of information, and then you can pick and choose with what'll work for you and your body, essentially.
Right. My biggest thing is be a student, right? So see what other people are doing, use the resources, right? YouTube, TikTok, all that stuff. They all got mobility, they all got strength training, they all got goalie videos on them, right? So be a student, learn what other people are doing. My biggest takeaway when I really got into off ice training was train to be an athlete and then specialize in being a goalie, right?
Yeah,
So the bulk of your workouts should be more athletic based rather than goalie based, right? Because a lot of our position, we're not using a lot of muscles, right? So you got to counteract that, be a well-rounded athlete so you can pick up, go play tennis, go do whatever, and then the specialized training. So maybe late off season, you start being a little bit more goalie specific,
absolutely.
right? Awesome. Billy, any final words or rants?
No, I just couldn't agree more. I think learning is the biggest thing that's gonna make a difference, and learning how to prevent injury by what you're doing off the ice is a huge thing. And that doesn't just, and we touched on mobility, we touched on different recovery techniques as far as hot and cold, But another thing is injury prevention. We touched on strength. Another thing is just, yeah, being able to understand you don't want to get hurt in the gym. So that's where you learn to prevent it. And that's when you're doing these exercises, understand that you're doing them not just to get stronger, but to prevent injury as well. So,
Right. Don't be a hero in the gym. Don't push, do a competition with your buddy, pushing more weight than you need to and you can, right? No need for that. It's called ego lifting, and we just don't really need it anymore. Um, yeah, I think that's good. If you have questions, you can always reach out to any one of us. Our socials will be down below. If you have a trainer, right, it's always good to ask forward thinking questions. And if you're unsure with their answers, ask for a second opinion, right? That also doesn't hurt, right? We do that with doctors, we do that with other things, right? It's the same thing for training. There's nobody who is the keeper of all secrets, right? Everybody's got their own little niche that they kind of focus on a little bit more, right? So don't be afraid to ask and have open conversations. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and see you all next week.